This is internationally best-selling indie author Michael Brent Collings inviting you to join me at bestsellerlife.com/DCR to unlock my tips, tricks, and hacks for a successful writing career. So go to bestsellerlife.com/DCR and kickstart your writing adventure today.
This is Daniel.
And this is Krebs.
This is Alton.
And I am Matai.
And you're listening to Dungeon Crawlers Radio, the greatest geek podcast out there. All right, everyone, welcome to another episode of Dungeon Crawlers Radio, where we have returned with an amazing, fantastic guest, Mr. Wyatt Karnes. Now, this is a kind of a unique episode where we're talking to an individual that created something amazing. Now, we've talked in the past with author Tracy Hickman, where he was preparing to create an actual replica of Castle Ravenloft for an event that he was doing. And, well, Wyatt is the man that brought this into reality. That's right. There is, 7-8 foot tall Castle Ravenloft that opens up and dissects that you can run through a game of, Ravenloft. And, I've only seen pictures. I haven't seen it in person. Alton got that amazing, I don't know, badge of honor, I guess we could call it.
It was a privilege. I'll be very clear about that. It was a privilege.
Yeah, I mean, the pictures were beautiful. It was printed. It looks like it was fully painted. I mean, it looks amazing. But Wyatt decided to, we invited him to come on the show. He kindly accepted, and we're going to be talking about this print, what it took, and everything else. So thanks for coming on the show.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So, I mean, the first off, the question is how did you get involved in this? Because, I'm pretty sure Tracy didn't just call you up and say, hey, I can't print this. Can you do it?
Well, if you want the long version or the short version, I guess would be the question on that one. If you're talking about the project of getting I'll give you the long version so that you can pick that apart. My wife and I have only really been playing D&D for about 3 years. I mean, there were some times in college where people tried to kick things off and they always died.
Yeah.
In kind of typical early D&D experiment fashion, I guess. But then we moved out here to Utah after college, and I've got some cousins in the area, and we'd been hanging out for a while. And one of them was like, hey, you want to, give D&D a shot? And I had always been kind of interested in it. So it was like, yeah, let's do it. And we actually got all the way through Lost Mines of Phandelver. And we had a blast doing it. And so then it became like, well, what else is there? I had no idea. So started researching things, and I was like, and I wanted to run a game because I had also joined another campaign with some people from church, and, they just got invited to it, but that one also fell through because of just being busy. And then I was like, well, as a school teacher, I've got prep time. So I was like, I'll run a game. And I just didn't know which one to run, and I was looking up, and Curse of Strahd just comes so highly recommended. And so I picked up a copy and started running it about 2 years ago. And then I just really it just really got into it, and we're just having a lot of fun. And I was just scrolling through, I don't know, Kickstarter, or I got an ad for a Kickstarter where some guy, he's a really cool guy, by the way, in Mexico was doing this design for a 3D printable Castle Ravenloft, and I was like, well, shoot, I should back this project just kind of on principle. And so I did that. And then when the files released a few months later, which was, February, early February, I think, of 2025, I just started printing them. And I've told basically everybody this slight part of the story, but it's the amount of pieces in this thing. I mean, like you said, it's 7'2", and that's without including any of the basement or catacombs levels of it. So just the above ground stuff. is 7'2", and so and it's all perfectly to miniature scale, right? So if you can imagine how many pieces, anybody that's listening has 3D printer would know how many pieces that is. It is probably still more than you think.
I mean, it looked like it was like 20-something Rubbermaid totes.
We got it out there as
or
16.
More.
Yeah.
16. Okay.
Very skillful, yeah.
Okay.
But that's its own story, which we'll get to in a minute.
Yeah.
But definitely continue on.
That was a crazy. So I start printing the thing out, and I got most of the first floor done, and that's the first floor is like 40 something pieces, almost 50, I think. And that's not including walls. That's just for the floor space. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, this is dumb. There's too much. It's too much. Cause at the time I was working with one printer. And I was like, this is not feasible. It was kind of how I felt about it. But then I got it all assembled there on my kitchen table. And I was like, holy cow, this is so cool. Like, I can't not finish the project. So, I did finish the project. In about May, everything was printed, and then I started painting things and had it kind of ready to go. And in May of 2025, there was the Dead Wars at the Provo Town Center Mall, where We Geek Together puts on their huge, like, record-breaking D&D game.
Yeah.
And I've been talking to the owner of that store, who's also a really cool guy. Andy, and he and I was like, hey, I've been asking him for painting tips, because I'd never really painted anything before. Like I said, D&D is still such like a newish thing. And now that once he found out I was doing this Ravenloft thing, I was like, hey, you're doing the Dead Wars, and I was like, would you have any interest in like using this as a display or anything like that? And he said yes, and so we got that up on the stage, where Bo from Critical Hit Soda saw it, I think, or was it you, Alton, that saw it?
Yeah, so
it's probably both of them.
So Bo actually didn't even see it. The side of the stage that it was on is opposite the side that Critical Hit Soda was doing all of their service on, and so he didn't see it there the whole time. But fast forward a couple of months, we're getting things ready for the cruise, and as Wyatt mentioned, this project is huge. When he's talking about 50 pieces for the first floor, that's not counting walls, that's not counting connector pins. And remember, when you're doing 3D printing, like, you are dealing with heat, which means that things warp and shift. And so try as you might, sometimes things just have to be reprinted, have to be scrapped and started over. And so Tracy had given up on that and said, well, we'll get some nice neoprene mats or something. But Bo and I had been talking and felt really strongly that, well, if we could get a castle there, that would be such a better experience for everybody. And so I called out to him, hey, did you see that castle at the Dead Wars? He says, no. I'm like, I have no idea how done it is or not, because it was just set up in display mode. But we should reach out and see. And so, yeah, Bo connected with Andy, and Andy got connected with Wyatt, and then Bo reaches out to Wyatt, and here's where I throw it back to Wyatt to say what happened from there.
Well, so when Bo reached out to me, actually, he called me, and I was actually in the middle of running Curse of Strahd. It was, by the time we finished our game, it was pretty late, so I didn't actually return the call until the following morning, and I don't remember what the voicemail even said, but it definitely did not say, hey, we would like to use your castle for this cruise with the Hick. Like, it was not. It was just like, hey, this is Bo, Critical Hit Soda, and like, my wife has always actually paid better attention to things like this than me, because I was like, who's this? I was like, it's this Bo guy from Critical Hit Soda, and she's like, that's that soda place that was at the Dead Wars, and I was like, oh, okay, and she's like, yeah, I've seen their Kickstarter, and she had seen the Kickstarter campaign for the project that the cruise was about, and I totally hadn't. And so I called him the next day, and Bo just basically gave me the pitch to it, which was like, can we use your castle? And I was like, well, yeah, but I sure would like to be able to go on this cruise. This sounds like a good time. And so we were able to work that out. And I told all my, as a high school teacher, I told all of my students at the, because the cruise was like right after the first week back, or right in the middle of the first week back from Christmas break. And so I was like, listen, guys, I would normally never skip it or like miss work at a time like this, but opportunity's too good. See ya. I'm gone.
I'm out.
And then ended up hauling 16 bins onto a cruise ship and meeting some really awesome people.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And I want to call out, like, huge props to Wyatt. First, for having the adventuresome spirit to show up and do it, but also
that's one way of putting
recognize the amount of trust that this man put into this whole thing. Right? This is something that is literally hundreds of hours in the making, and he agreed to let us box it up, ship it across the country to Long Beach, load it onto a cruise ship, and then ship it back. The majority of this is all happening without him directly touching the boxes and making sure that everything is okay. Like, that takes some serious guts. And I am so grateful for it, because the moment we got there, we're on the morning of the first event day. We go into the conference room early. Wyatt, Abby, his wife, myself, get there, and Tasha, and we start setting things up. And we've got a time lapse of this whole thing. It's really, really cool as we're pulling out bins and setting things on tables and making sure everything is good to go. And I get to open the door for Tracy and Laura to walk in and see it for the first time. And Wyatt, I think you were there in the room, right? You got to see that moment? Yep. So before I talk about what I saw, what was it like for you to see Tracy and Laura take in the castle for the first time?
Well, I'll take a little bit of a step back, because when Bo was originally pitching this thing to me, I'm, again, new to the D&D world, but I have I love that you call it the adventuresome spirit, because that makes it sound way less money wasteful than it tends to be. But Bo was like, we're doing this cruise and it'll have the Hickmans on it. And I was like,
have no clue who that is.
Who is that? But my wife, who's been paying attention, is like, that's the people that came up with Ravenloft. I was like, oh. And then immediately I was just like, oh, this is so cool. And then they were meeting them. They are so awesome. Mm-hmm. They were so nice. And I could say that of everyone on the cruise, but I was so worried about like the paint job, because like I said, I really didn't have a lot of any experience painting anything big like that. I painted a few miniatures, but I wouldn't say that I'm like really good. And I think Bo is like an award-winning mini painter and stuff. And I was like, man, I really hope this holds up. Cause like you have the aspect of like, yes, it's physically imposing. It's huge. It's, accurate. But I was like, if I screwed up the painting on this, and I was like, he can see the outside, and I tried to get that book accurate, but then once it gets so it was really exciting, but I also had that fear level of like, boy, I hope I didn't butcher their creation really. But it was fun to try to keep it sort of hidden from them and everyone else, I think, and so it was just really fun to kind of. It was relieving at that point, and I don't know if we'll get into this at all, talking about like kind of the setup process and some of the hiccups we ran into there, but because of all of that, so like we weren't even sure we were going to be, even after getting everything out to Long Beach, we weren't even sure we were actually going to be able to get the bins onto the boat.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I know it must have been very stressful for Alton to be setting up this event, because it was just thing after thing after thing of like, well, maybe it works, maybe, and then finally, like the night before, we're all sitting down there in this conference room, and I don't know how much to take away here, Alton, but
You're good. I'm sure I'll add more details, but you go ahead and tell the story while I calm myself down from hearing the choppers. You know.
Yeah. It was mostly just so it was all sorts of crazy, I guess, and this kind of adds to the fun of it. But 16 bins, 18 total because there were 2 full of board games, but 16 bins that we had to get on this boat. Ideally, without any of the people that came on the cruise knowing what was in them. Other than just being like, yeah, there's board games and stuff in here. And then there was no storage room for them, so it was ultimately Alton's cruise ship cabin. And then we had, and that's on like the 7th deck of the ship, and the conference room is in the bottom of the ship, so we had to move the bins down there. And we knew that would be a lot of work, but on the night before, we're sitting there like, or I was sitting there and we're discussing everything, and Tracy and Laura are like, all right, sounds like everything's all set and whatnot. And internally, I'm just having this panic of like, there's no way we don't do a practice setup. Like, we have to do a practice setup or this is going to be so bad. Because there was like a strict timeline about it. But I was like, this is not my show. I will not say anything. I'm just the guy that brought this or provided this thing. And then Elton goes, I think we should need a test setup. And I was like, oh my, like, thank you so much for that. And so sorry, that's a really long-winded roundabout way of getting to like when Tracy and Laura walked in and we finally had that moment. It was this massive like de-stressification for me as this person. And they were like, wow, and seeing them have that, I guess, kind of approval or that it met expectations maybe was good.
No, I mean that sounds amazing. For years, what Castle Ravenloft looks like has been in their minds, Tracy and Laura's minds, let alone, we have some mats that are 2D flat, but and we've had beautiful renderings of what it looks like and, from an outside perspective, but to see it finally physically present had to have been amazing for those two, and then to be the one that facilitated that by saying, hey, yeah, I printed this, I made this, from what I could tell, I mean, the paint job looked fantastic. I'm sure there were some minor things that, could have been critiqued, but the fact that you've only been playing D&D for 3 or 4 years and you decide to print a 7'2", a physical copy of Castle Ravenloft. I mean, that's huge. I mean, I've been playing for over 35 years now, and I have never attempted that. Yeah, I mean, yes, I've done minis and structures, but never an entire Ravenloft castle.
It's wisdom on your part.
Well, and beyond that, I want to puff up Wyatt even more in this regard, because it wasn't just that he printed the files. He has been in active communication with the creator, getting changes along the way made as he was going through and helping to engineer and solve problems along the way. He came up with a solution to make sure that the basement catacombs that are normally flooded, he has a way to both flood and unflood them that was not part of the original scope of the thing. There are a lot of extra details and things that he figured out in terms of making sure that the connection points were going to be easier for him to be able to assemble and disassemble things. He found other creators and other people in the community who were contributing their own aspects of the project, like this beautiful stained glass that's on the back side. And again, like, it was very obvious from the moment that I stepped into his classroom in Heber and see all these little details, like, Wyatt has put his soul into this. He has made sure that this is excellent.
Yeah, so I got a quick question, because you mentioned the flooding of the catacombs. Now tell me, I'm sure you didn't just pour water in it. How did you do this?
Well, I do want to clarify. Sorry, I'm grateful for the and there is some stuff that I did contribute, but I won't take credit for the flooding of the catacombs. Okay. In that sense, that actually is part of the original design.
Oh, I misunderstood. I apologize.
No worries about that. I want to give full props to the people that deserve it. it's like I've come to discover that my wife and I, we really do love the you could say TTRPGs in general, although we've really only played D&D up to this point. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, and D&D bad or anything like that, because we love it. We've had so much fun, and I do have this tendency to really just full dive into things whenever I get into them. So like, sorry, I'm getting too long-winded here.
You're
I'm
fine.
trying to make sure that the context makes sense, but the D&D is like the collaborative storytelling process in a lot of ways, right? So you have this guy who has done this Kickstarter, and he had done something previously to a much smaller scale, which gave me enough confidence to back the Kickstarter. It's really been this kind of collaborative thing from all of the people that are doing it. Now, I know there's some other people in the U.S. that are printing the thing, and but the first two people to finish the print were me and a guy in like Czechoslovakia, and the guy from Czechoslovakia, they're in the to support the floors in the castle. There were these really big flat. I was thinking maybe I have some of them lying in this mess back here, but I think I threw them away. But they're these huge flat support things that were 3D printed, and they were a lot of filament, and they were pretty slow to print. And I was looking at how many I was gonna have to do. I was like, this kind of sucks. And then like literally, because around the same day that I was like starting to print those, because we were like neck and neck. Nobody knows who technically finished first. It was probably him, if we're being honest, but we were both posting completed castles at the same time. And he contributed this idea of like, well, I'll get an aluminum, like a square aluminum beam, and I'll replace that instead of the 3D printed part. And I was like, wow, that's a brilliant idea. So I did a wood one to because I didn't want to have to deal with cutting aluminum. And then I was like, oh man, this thing could really use some support down the middle. So I designed a tiny little part, because I've never done 3D design, but I was like, okay, I'll figure something out. So I did a little tiny part that allows you to add a brace down the middle using that same kind of technique. And then I guess if there was a contribution on my part, it was that the way the castle goes together is these little clips, they're called open lock clips. They're not unique to the castle. And there's a couple variations. One of them is like, yeah, it sticks together completely. And then another variation is there's actually no friction. It just kind of holds things in alignment. And so the vertical part of the castle was meant to be done originally with these alignment clips. And the problem with that is that there's so many of them, like floor to floor, that actually aligning it when you put the castle together, I was, after doing like the first couple floors, I was like, this is a nightmare to do it. So I was like, there's got to be a better way. And magnets were my, like, this has got to be it. Like, magnets would be so cool. And there is an open lock clip design that accepts spherical magnets, which means you don't have to worry about polarity on it. You can just, if the magnets aren't sticking, you just swipe the part across a couple times, and then the spheres move, and then it sticks. So I was making big suggestions of like, hey, we should all go with magnets. This is like way better. Now people can still do it however they want, but the point is, it's been this big collaborative process, because I have been talking to the original designer of the castle, and again, he's such a cool guy. He was like, hey, because you and this other guy were like the first, if there's anything that you want to add to the castle, like plans, then let me know. And we haven't seen what'll come out of that yet. The stained glass idea came from a guy in Italy, and I mean, what a genius idea. The stained glass is made by printing a picture onto a overhead projector sheet, and we've probably all forgotten about overhead projectors the most part, unless you used them in school. But and so I was like, does my school even have some of these I can like take? And I went and asked our librarian, and she was like, I don't know the last time we actually bought any of those. So I had to go and find, and it was easy because Amazon, right? But I just ordered a pack of them. And it was just, sorry, like I said, I get long-winded about this because there really was a lot that went into this project. but it really has been this collaborative thing of like everybody adding like a little thing, and then it just ups the whole project, and that's very D&D in my experience.
Yeah.
And it was
No, that sounds amazing.
and it was really magical. As we got everything set up down in that conference room. On a cruise ship, you're not allowed to bring extension cords and high-end electronics and things, and so we really had no clue what we would be able to do in terms of lighting and sound to be able to get everything there. But we had a big TV up at the front of the room, and there were some basic lighting controls. But the way that, because of the sizing of the castle, it meant that we could put it right about where a lectern would normally be for somebody speaking up at the front of the room. And so we get the lights mostly dimmed, except for a little ring around the center that's focused in on the castle. And then get a big moon peeking through the clouds up on the TV and resize it and move it around until it's just peeking out past the spire. And we've got video of the moment that Tracy and Laura first stepped into the room. And, you know, they're excited to be there, and they know they're on camera. They're consummate professionals. And so you can see that, you know, they're in this mode as they're starting to turn the corner. But you watch just this little, like, 5% shift in their face, where it changes from, I'm excited to be on camera because I know this is going to be on camera, into, oh. And then that led, you know, over, they came in, and originally they were going to have 20 to 30 minutes to actually like set up for the game and everything else. And that turned basically, or to the panels that we were doing that morning rather. And that basically turned into 25 minutes of them walking around the castle, taking photos and talking with Wyatt and getting really excited about the whole thing. And then finally they get settled and, okay, can I bring the guests in? Sure. And so we walk out, and I give a little spiel to everybody, and then I walk them down the hallway. And I stood outside the door so I could see every person's reaction as they turn 90 degrees. And you watch as every single person's face just lights up. It was a magical moment. And it could not have happened without Wyatt. It couldn't have happened.
Yeah.
And it couldn't have happened without all of the work from the people in this wonderful community who have made this project really, really cool. And I know it's nowhere near done. Wyatt and I were talking, and you know, we've still got the battlements and the cliffs that are still in design process, etc. When the whole thing is said and done, I think we had calculated it's going to be like 7 feet by 9 feet by 10 feet or something like that.
Yeah, it's like 6 feet wide, 7 feet deep, and 9 feet tall if you're like going on the whole thing. And I'm already struggling with having somewhere to put it. But boy, like I've got to finish it somehow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm already like 50 kilograms of filament deep.
I mean, this is amazing. Really, it is. I mean, and this is the amazing thing about, you know, the blend of technology now and this collaborative storytelling game that's been around for decades, is now we can transport those things that we used to only be able to see in our mind, or that we would draw out on a wet or dry erase board or mat, to we can actually now physically move our little miniatures through the entire castle. You still have the battlements and all these other components, but still 7'2" castle. I need to see this in person, but I know it's going to take a lot of time to get set up. So hopefully one of these events in the future, I'll be able to see that myself and be able to join the ranks of other people. But there's just something magical about being able to kind of cognitively offload that and be able to now physically experience that, And then on top of that, I mean, I have been in an experience where, Tracy has ran Castle Ravenloft, and it's amazing. Add that level on top of, wandering through the halls of Castle Ravenloft. It's just, that had to be an amazing experience. And, as difficult as it's been for you, the struggles you've had to go through, the headaches, the frustrations, even the both of you have had to deal with of getting things onto the boat and stuff like that. In the end, I would have to assume that it was all worth it to see both Laura and Tracy's expressions, and then see the expression of every individual that walked into that room, knowing that you contributed to that moment for them.
Yeah. It's funny. The face light up moments for me, now that I've had time to think about it a little more, there's like right at the very beginning of the panel, Tracy walked around the castle. Like, he walked around it, and he just said, "I am the ancient, I am the land." Like, walked around it and sat down, and I was like, this is it. And Alton did like the great job with like the moon in the background, and the lights were like all dim. And then throughout the whole thing, Tracy just kept cracking these little evil smiles where I could tell, like, and I mean, I'm assuming I'm reading this right. It looked like he was just having a really great time playing D&D.
Oh, yeah.
And so that was really, really cool for me. And maybe we'll talk about how the story ended or not. And it came down to it where I was like, man, how is this thing going to kind of end? And it felt like the longer that we went on and the more we went through the castle, we just got more of those little smiles of like, yep, this is cool. This is like the thing that should happen. And I don't know how much we can talk about that, but
well, the beautiful thing is that this is all edited in the future. So if you share some detail, I'll just bleep. Well, I'll have Daniel bleep it out. But yeah,
you're gonna cut out like a 10-minute section of like.
No, I think it'd be way funnier to just leave little bleeps like you're shouting expletives across the internet. But no, go ahead, because one of the other things that we didn't mention in all of this is that we weren't running the original Castle Ravenloft module. There is brand new original content that we created specifically for this.
Oh,
and and Tracy and Laura, quite literally came out of retirement to write some new lore and to write some new game material. And this is something that I've been talking about with Tracy for 3 years. Of like, man, it would be really cool if we could do this. And then when the files very first hit Kickstarter, I sent the link to him. I'm like, man, it'd be really cool if we could do this. Even if all we had was just this as a background element as you're signing pictures, like people would be all about that. And so then when we had the opportunity to be a part of Critical Hit Soda's Kickstarter, it was like, hey, look, this is the alpha test. We've not done anything like this before. We know that nobody else has hauled this castle onto a ship before, and so we're gonna have to figure it out. But being able to be in the room with a mix of people who were newer to D&D and really old school players, people who have played Castle Ravenloft literally from its incarnation with Tracy and Laura, to people who are only experiencing Curse of Strahd for the first time or hadn't even been introduced to the story yet, as a couple members of our staff were. It was phenomenal. And to be able to do it in a space with, again, where Theater of the Mind was still useful, but heavily aided, was insane. Yeah. And Tracy lit up all along the way. It was an exhausting process for everybody, including him. But at the end of it all, every single day, every single session, as I sat down and I talked with him, it was a delight. And I'll let him speak for himself, of course, at some point. But yeah, it was really cool.
I can only imagine it was like Christmas morning for him, walking in and seeing the castle. But no, this is all amazing. I mean, I know we need to probably wrap up here. We're getting to that point.
Oh, yeah.
But so my final question is now that it's built, now that it's been seen, what event in the future can people find this experience happening again, if that's even been discussed?
So, Wyatt, I'll let you answer any questions as far as other displays of this particular castle goes. And then I may have some interesting things to drop about future engagements.
Nice.
Sure. So I had a really good time despite the chaos. I had a really good time, and my wife did too. And so I would definitely be open to future endeavors with this group of people. And also, even before this, I was talking with Andy from We Geek Together about the fact that I had nowhere to put this castle because as much as my wife loves D&D, and as much as I love D&D, there's really nowhere in the house to put it. So it lives in my classroom so that students get to walk in and have that light. And most of the students have no idea what they're looking at. But still, the imposing feature is just kind of like, whoa, you know? But I've talked with Andy of We Geek Together about doing a event where we run games in that, maybe for like a Halloween type thing. There's still some discussion of that, but if there was like a lot of interest in that, because Andy's been really, really good to me. I can't even like this whole thing wouldn't have even happened at all if it wasn't for Andy being so willing to just talk to some random guy who happened to ask him questions like, I run a D&D club at a high school, you know, got any advice for me, yada yada. Like that's how that really started. Because I'm like the one teacher running the D&D club at our high school, and yeah, so there's a potential future there. Sorry, I was just thinking about the, I guess, string theory of it all, of like, hey, this guy did a dungeon where a vampire showed up randomly, and then and he didn't like it, and so his wife invented a vampire, and then 50 years later, I have a 7'2" castle, and I'm taking on a cruise ship. You know, it's just kind of this really crazy line that leads from that.
You know, I that's just life. I mean, to be honest, you know, I had read the Dragonlance books that Tracy had written, you know, decades ago, growing up, and then I started the podcast. I went to a book signing, and like I was super nervous, you know, because in my opinion, this was kind of like one of my big asks at the time of getting an author on the show. And then, you know, I talked to him. And I mean, I was nervous. It took me an hour to get the courage to go up to him and ask if he could be on the show, which was crazy thinking of it now, because I could just like message him and he's like, sure. But yeah, I got up and he's like, yeah, no problem. That'd be great. Let's do it. And I'm like, all right, sure. You know, and then that spins around. I've done a bunch of things. He's come on the show many times, which then led me to meeting his daughter Tasha, which then led to Alton, me meeting Alton, and now he's on the show, and now because of that we're talking to you. Like, life is wonderful and amazing how it spins around, you know, timey-wimey, you know, wobbly, whatever the Doctor Who says, but everything seems to connect. And so it is amazing that, you know, Tracy didn't like running this vampire lair that, you know, Laura contributed, and now we're years later, decades later, and we have this castle that we can now say is part of that lore, and it is now part of the history that you're a part of when it comes to this.
So if you do,
and that's amazing.
So if you do want to see this particular print of the castle, which, you know, now is used by Tracy and Laura themselves. It sounds like we're going to try to get some things arranged with We Geek Together later this year during spooky season. So, you know, keep an ear to the ground on that. But beyond that, this particular cruise was a test. We wanted to see whether something like this could be done and what the pain points were going to be. And we identified many pain points. There are some things that we will never do again. And there are others that we will absolutely do every time again, because they just delighted everybody who was there. And again, I just want to say a huge thank you to Wyatt. It was so phenomenal, and the work that you've put in is really, really good. You should be proud of it. And anybody who gets to see this castle, if you have the opportunity, go out of your way to do it, because it's magnificent.
You know, this is awesome that you're putting this together, Alton. And, you know, if you have the chance, definitely go see this castle. It sounds amazing. I may have to do so myself. But again, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for telling the story. I know there's probably so much more you could talk about, you know, over the event. Unfortunately, we don't have a ton of time.
It's okay, Dan.
But,
You
we
and
can
I will
definitely...
talk more.
It's all right.
Yes. But I just want to say thank you. But everyone, definitely, if you have an opportunity, go check this out. We'll probably be getting links and stuff that we could share out, or even sharing out pictures that Alton took. But with that
I still need
said,
to see the time lapse.
the time
is
lapse
cool.
would be amazing. Yeah. But as always, listeners, we love getting input from you. We got a lot of great content we're going to put together this year. And as always, we'll catch you next time.
And Dungeon Crawlers, tell your story, whatever may come, and always remember to be epic and don't suck.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. If you like this episode, please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you find us.
Remember, the Force will be with you, always.
What happens when modern magic, high-tech weaponry, and an unstoppable dragon collide? Find out in the epic audiobook of A Dragon's Fate, brought to life by Daniel and Krebs. This Whitney Award finalist novel will pull you into a pulse-pounding world where a secret cabal battles for power, and a dragon could bring everything to an explosive end. Don't just hear the story. Feel the magic, the danger, and the action. Get ready for a ride you won't forget. Grab your copy of A Dragon's Fate, now available on Audible.